P Coleman, Content Director for Brother Be Well. We're in for a great conversation tonight. We're going to be talking about trauma and its toll on the body. And we're also going to take a second and let some of the elders in the community maybe share a little wisdom with some of the young folks in the community. And so let's get that whole thing started. We've got a great team of folks that's going to be talking to you today. First, I want to welcome, I'll introduce them all to you. First, I want to welcome a colleague and a friend of mine, Justin Martinez. He's a youth advocate and he's a Brother Be Well contributor. Brother Justin.
How you doing, Michael? I'm glad to be here.
I'm really good. It's like just yesterday I saw you, don't you think, Justin?
That's right, man. Absolutely. It's always a pleasure.
It's going to be fantastic. Thanks a lot. Next up, we've got BBW, Brother Be Well Clinical Advisor, Dr. Michael Houston. Dr. Houston, sir, how are you?
How you guys doing? Good to be here. Good to be a part of the group.
How's it going?
I'm ready.
It's great to see you again. Can't wait to get into this. Next up, Carter Todd is joining us. He's a registered nurse, and he's the president of the Capital City Black Nurses Association. Hey, Carter.
What's up, everybody? Always a pleasure on our Wednesdays.
Great to see you. Next up, we've got Esther Muriithi. She's a registered nurse, and she's a member of Capital City Black Nurses Association. Esther, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Lovely to be with all of you all today. Can't wait to see what happens.
So good to have you. So good to have you. And finally, today, we've got Henry Ortiz. He's also new to the team. He's a trauma healing advocate and a trainer. Henry, what's up?
Hey, how we doing? I hope everybody's doing good. Honored to be here in space with you tonight.
Really appreciate you being here. Henry, as long as you've got the mic, you're new to the team. So talk a little bit, just for a minute or two, about your background and what you bring to Brother Be Well.
Well, my background is starting off as an incarcerated youth and working my way through the system at the age of 18 and going to prison for 21 years, right? I was involved with the gangs. I was with the lifestyle and, made a lot of bad decisions based on pain and hurt and trauma. And so eventually that led me to incarceration, and there, you're always getting into altercations and you're always isolated, you're always locked. So you got to look within, you got to find out who you truly are. And I took a journey in the process of getting to understand why I was so angry, so violent, so hurt, so broken. Where did that come from? How far did it stem from? Understanding, the impact that all these things have had on me, subconsciously, emotionally, spiritually in my journey, and fighting through my demons and finding healing, forgiveness, and overlooking the little stuff that not used to drag me into the nonsense. And so I ended up spending 18 years of my life in there. I co-founded an organization called Self-Awareness and Recovery with a good friend who did 39 years for a wrongful conviction. Me and him went on a journey for various years and went to various prisons as we transferred or trained other men to conduct different healing space workshops. I've had very fortunate to have mentors that are also evidence-based authors like Robin Kasarjian and Bethany Kasarjian, authors of Houses of Healing and also a youth evidence-based program called Power Source. I also been trained by Doug Noll as a mediator, who's the author of De-Escalate. And these were a lot of my mentors were the folks that taught me all the clinical and the academic stuff, but the best experiences came from the stories of pain and hurt from my own peers, from my own people, when I guided those discussions, when I became raw with my pain, with my hurt, and I allowed them to also process and relate and learn and grow so that we could change each other, so we could prepare each other to meet the criteria to come home and make a difference in our community.
Really powerful, Henry, and looking forward to your contributions to Brother Be Well. I want to thank you for being a part of it. Esther, if you take just a second or two to kind of introduce yourself more formally and talk about your background.
Sure. My name is Esther Muriithi. So I've been a nurse for over 8 years now. I also hold a degree in psychology. So when I heard about the project of Brother Be Well through CCBNA, I was really intrigued and wanted to be a part of it. I have a son who's 7. I have brothers. I have, of course, with my nursing, I take care of patients and other community members that are Black men. And so this is a project that's really dear and near to me. I don't have the experience that Henry brought to the table, but I do have a willingness to learn and also be an advocate for our community. And as well as having grown up in Kenya, like seeing the juxtaposition of how cultures are different and how we also meet in the middle, that's very intriguing to me, and just being able to relate the two.
Really, really appreciate you being so willing to be a part of what we're doing. Thank you very much, Esther.
You're welcome.
And finally, for today, Justin Martinez, you met him briefly, already a great friend of mine. Justin, why don't you talk a little bit about what you bring to the table? And then if you don't mind, why don't you get us right into the first of the questions we got for today?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Michael. My name is Justin Martinez. I am just a recent graduate from San Francisco State with my psychology degree in May. I'm very excited to be a part of the team as a content contributor, as a youth advocate, as a foster youth advocate, as an inspiring speaker, just somebody who's trying to encourage the youth and young men to develop themselves into the best that they could possibly be. And my lived experience is with the foster care system, the child welfare system. I have a long history of domestic violence in my upbringing, and a lot of trauma, intergenerational trauma that's been passed down on both both sides of my family, including the intergenerational incarceration that's been floating around in my family, which has predicted more for me. So it's something that I take very serious, and I also am very passionate about breaking the cycle in those intergenerational cycles. I want to break them. I want to bring forth my best effort and find some encouragement for everyone else involved.
Appreciate it, Justin.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, which brings me to the first question topic. You know, in our home, in my home, strong Latino culture, family. You know, and I'm sure others can relate to this as well, that there's a lot of reasons that we don't talk about mental health related to stigma. But the reality is that a lot of us experience trauma, we experience secondary trauma, and that also poses the need to seek help or to seek treatment. And I just want to ask you guys here if any of you can relate to that, to those traumas. And if you did experience trauma as a youth, what was that like, and how did you seek help?
Seek help. Trauma.
I'll start by saying, I think in communities of color, the trauma that you witness, you don't even really realize that it's out of the norm, right? If you grow up in something, it's hard to really take yourself out of the environment and look at it from an outside point of view. So I think seeking help isn't something that we typically do, that I typically did, because what I experienced on the spectrum just seemed normal, right? And it's something that you become accustomed to, going to school, in the neighborhood, you know. So it didn't seem like it was really even an option. And then as you grow up, and you become an adult and you go through more life experiences, you take a step back and say, maybe there was something off about that. Maybe there are some resources I can help to build myself back up.
I'll jump in if the group doesn't mind. I experienced trauma in my home growing up, but Carter, that's a really good point. It's like individuals who grew up economically disadvantaged often say they didn't realize they were poor because they were what they were. Their house was what it was. So I grew up with an alcoholic father, and I just really frankly thought everybody's home was like that until probably at least high school, before I began to realize that the experiences I was having weren't common. I understand one of our clinicians can correct me. It takes an average of about 10 years for someone to identify that source of trauma and wind up seeking treatment. If that figure's accurate, it's buried in my head. It took me 3 times that long. I was in my 30s before I walked into a therapist's office for the first time to deal with some of the trauma that I had experienced. And in part, it was because I didn't really realize I had been traumatized. The first time a therapist referred to what I had been through as PTSD, my reaction was, well, PTSD is what soldiers go through that, people in war zones. And I remember her telling me, well, you've been in a war zone, you just didn't realize it.
Yep.
Yeah.